just came off of a couple of weeks of break where I was away from the majority of my work, decidedly not a vacation, but I was happy to get a bit more rest than usual and not have meetings and on-air appearances and work social events and deadlines and all that kind of stuff. And I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be happy versus being joyful and all that airy shit that we've been hearing if we were raised by Oprah, at least in part. Sometime last year or so, I was on this show talking about how I felt way too much pride in how overworked I felt and how overworked I was, and boasting too much about how I was working crazy numbers of hours and all those kinds of things. And there's kind of a no days off and grind and hustle culture that I've always been a little too influenced by. Even though I've never really used the idea of no days off, like I think that's some white supremacist bullshit that is a whole other conversation. But similarly, I think I know there have been times in my life where everyone was saying they were exhausted or tired and burnt out and angry or frustrated or confused or whatever it is. And sometimes I've unwittingly like adopted that kind of ethos, right? And like I think that we kind of do that as a culture when we're doing things together. And I've been thinking to myself and asking myself questions about whether or not I'm happy. I've been in therapy for a number of years with the same therapist now, and like we've been talking about how things have been up and down. And if you've been listening to this show for any good amount of time, I've had experience of depression and anxiety over the years and talked about that. But I was talking to my therapist about how I'm in what she's been calling remission, right, from depression, and things have been pretty good. And I've been doing this meditation app, and it asks you before your meditation all these questions about how you're feeling. And it asks you, on a scale of great to bad. And I'm like, good or great, good or... And like feeling weird about that. And it asks you if you feel happy, if you feel relaxed, if you feel whatever. And like happy is always one that is like, I don't know. And I started to have this question of whether or not I feel allowed to feel happy, right? To feel like really happy with the way my life is going or the ways that things are going. And like, again, recognizing the distinctions that we make between being happy and feeling joy and the difference. And I don't want to be happy. I want joy, all that shit. Right. But like the way that we feel about these things. And I think even as folks who work in diversity, equity, inclusion, a lot of our work is centered around our trauma, our oppression, and the ways that shows up in the workplace and the ways that we can make it better. And our goal is to seemingly work ourselves out of jobs, right? Which seems impossible, but is ultimately the end goal. If we do the work well, seemingly we wouldn't be necessary. But it makes me ask the question of like, do you feel allowed to be happy? Like to really be able to like embrace joy and really be able to be happy? Because I've been like going back and forth with myself about it, unsure.
So this is a tough question. You missed that part at the beginning, friend.
Okay, first of all, by the way, this is a tough question.
That's all right. First week back. It's okay, friend. It's okay. That's what I'm here for. It's okay. We see each other. Period. Okay?
We see each other. Available May 9th.
Do I feel allowed to be happy?
Do you understand what I'm coming from with that? Like,
I think so. Let's see what my answer is, and you'll let me know. But while you were talking, I did think about what? In
my mind, you're like, while you were talking, I was thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. And let me tell you, I came back and realized you were still talking.
See, I'm not you, so I actually pay attention all the way through. Mm-hmm. And so...
I only feel attacked because it's not wrong.
And so while you were talking, I, as folks now know, have been working on a podcast called We See Each Other. The podcast comes out next week, y'all. And we recently were doing a recording at the Unique Women's Coalition, which is a Black trans woman-led organization here in Los Angeles that does great work for the community. And we were there interviewing different community members for the podcast. And I know some of the community members that were there, trans folks, and obviously I have the book coming out, and folks were asking me, am I excited? Am I happy? Da 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 da. And while you were speaking, I took myself went back to there, because the operative word here, right, in your question is, do you feel allowed, right, to be happy? And I do think that there is a broader situation in culture where, like, one has to navigate how one articulates, being in a good place in their life, being happy, being, a variety of positive feelings. Because, right, the world is a shit show, right? And I think there is a sentiment, a broad sentiment of of like, you want to be happy, you want to be able to articulate that you're happy, but you don't want to come off as, like, at least for me, I don't want to come off as, like, cocky. I don't want to come off as, like, there is no struggle, you know um and I want, it's important for me for other people to know that, like, the just because I feel good or am in a good place is not a comment on where the person I'm speaking to may or may not be. And so that question of, do you feel allowed to be happy? I do think that there is a just a broader community cultural work to be done around giving space and allowing space for folks to be Gucci.